Hello. Today I'd like to take you for a drive in my 1998 Nissan Patrol. I haven't seen another video like this of just a casual drive in a Patrol, so I thought I would make one. So this is a Series 1 GU Patrol, 4.5 liter straight 6-speed manual gearbox, manual transfer case, locking hubs, all the good stuff for off-road. So take you for a quick walk around the outside. Show you guys under the hood. A little bit dirty, a little bit nasty under here, but it all works. So there's our 4.5 liter TB45. It's a pushrod straight 6 petrol engine, makes around 200 horsepower and I believe high 200 foot-pounds of torque. It's a reliable workhorse that was used in buses and big vans. It's kind of a commercial engine. It was also used in forklifts, but it works okay in a four-wheel drive as well. It's fuel injected. It has a somewhat modern style ignition system with a dual optical triggered distributor. So it's not coil packs, but it's still more modern than points. It's got a mass airflow sensor, all that kind of stuff. Manual throttle, of course, with the cables. We've got dual batteries and a factory snorkel system as well through the fender and up there. I've owned this Patrol for almost a year and a half now, put about 30,000 kilometers on it. It's got around 420,000 on it now. Aside from some minor mechanical, preventative maintenance, I've never had any real failures with it. So pretty solid and stout vehicle. I guess you could call it a backpacker in Australia, originally from Canada. So as such, my car has basically become an extension of a backpack in a roundabout way. So we've got all the shit on top of it. A fold-out tent, a 180-degree awning, a storage box with the solar panel, and the same story inside. It's basically just a backpack with a bunch of compartments. The interior in these cars is pretty spacious, and for the time it was quite nice. I've done some upgrades or modifications myself with this dual tier platform. The seats still fold down, so you still have 5 seats. I'll attach a picture of what it originally looks like in the back. It's originally a 7-seater, but is no longer, of course. So I'll do another video of a full tour of my camping setup, but for now, this will be the basic look of everything. We've got the cooking platform, 3 drawers, storage for chairs, cooking, fridge, freezer. It's basically just a big backpack. Table on top underneath the tent. Yeah, all my handiwork, but it's turned out pretty nice for the purpose of what we use it for. We'll take another look at it when it's in the sun, but for now let's take it for a drive. Of course, we're in Australia, so vehicle from the 90s. No neutral safety switch, no clutch safety switch. Just turn the key, whatever gear it's in, the starter's going to actuate. Comes to life. Let's see here. 417,000 kilometers on the odometer, which is probably a little bit underestimated because it's got bigger tires and the odometer's off around 10 to 12%. So depending on how long it's had bigger tires for, you could do some math. But yeah, let's go for a drive. High 30 degrees here in Condamine, Queensland. So we might turn the air conditioning on at some point. Still works nice. Bought this vehicle in Victoria, in Melbourne, and it's been with me up to Condamine. It's been up the coast a little ways, up to Townsville, with 4 people loaded down with luggage. It sucked up all of our goods pretty nicely, and it was quite comfortable for you know, doing 8-hour, 10-hour driving days with 4 people in the car. It did just fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's a little bit clunky to drive. Takes a little bit of finesse for sure to drive it smoothly, but that's kind of the way it goes with these big old 4-wheel drives. Basically all the accessories are power. This is a ST trim, so it's not a base, it's not the fully loaded one, but it has everything you need. Cruise control, of course got my Android Auto, Chinese spy device there, got our CB radio there, so it does pretty well. It's not a very fast vehicle, but has enough power for what we need. I also tow a jet ski with it, and it does fine with that. I wouldn't really want to tow any kind of crazy big trailers with it. With the big tires, I'd probably want to re-gear it. I'm sure towing 5th gear would be pretty much useless, and you'd be in 4th all day. But it's quite smooth on the highway, quite quiet for what it is. Wind noise really isn't that bad, especially with all the stuff on the roof. No complaints there. Put it in 5th gear. We have our little cruise control button on the side. Steering wheel controls, that's really all you need is your cruise control and the steering wheel. I'm glad it doesn't have anything else. So, if you're thinking about buying a GU Patrol, this is one of the engines that is a little bit less desirable. In Australia here, there's a pretty big cultural following for 4-wheel drives, and the GU Patrol and 80 series Land Cruiser, you know, being 2 of the most sort of legendary offerings of the time period and of all time, really. These things are really what people are after, and they don't really get much better than this. The newer you get, the less focused they become in terms of off-road prowess. So if you're looking for one, I'd recommend the TB45. It's been a great engine for me. So this trim, this exact setup is pretty easy to find, pretty standard. So if you get the manual transmission from factory, it's a 5-speed manual. It's a big cast iron unit. You get a H260 semi-floating rear end, which it has a massive pinion gear, and it's a really strong rear end. Semi-floating, but it's still quite strong. And if you're looking for one like I've got, I would definitely go for it. We don't get this kind of stuff back in Canada at all, so depending on where you're watching from, you might have some different things to say or to think about this sort of vehicle. It might not be that novel to you if you're from Australia, but if you're from North America like I am, you know, this has been sort of a dream car of mine. Something like this anyways, not that picky, but something like this has been a dream car of mine for years. I came over here initially wanting a Troop Carrier Land Cruiser or an 80 series. I've got a few friends back home with the 80 series, but I found they were a little bit out of my price range at the time. My budget was, you know, maximum around $10,000. I picked this one up for around $4,000 if I remember correctly, but it needed some work when I got it, I guess. I put a gearbox in it because fourth gear was pretty much shattered. Just really crunchy getting into. I think the car had done a lot of towing before with a pretty big size caravan, judging by the airbags in the back that it had and all that kind of stuff. You could just go and figure that it's done some towing. So I put a gearbox in, put a rear end into it, but after that it's been great, other than preventative maintenance that I've been doing. But you know, I bought a car over here, I wanted to work on it as well, so I've done some things to it that I didn't at all have to do. I could have just driven the car, driven it the way it was, but I wanted to learn how it worked. You know, it's an enriching experience to work on something that's foreign to you, especially something that you don't get back home and you're never going to be able to replicate back home when you go back. So just to involve myself in working on it and understanding how it works and all that kind of stuff was a great time. So maybe a little bit long-winded, but these patrols, all these types of four-wheel drives in Australia, they're like Legos. In certain areas, depending on the kind of culture that's there. Back in Victoria, when I bought this thing, I needed a lot of things to pass it through roadworthy inspection, which is a long story, but I had a little Hyundai Getz at the time, and I ended up just driving all around Victoria getting little parts for this thing off Facebook Marketplace. So many different parts from the newer patrols fit them. You can really build them like Legos, just like you can with the Hondas and all that kind of stuff. People swap all kinds of engines into here. A lot of people convert them to the TD42s and whatnot. So but jumping back to some of the options and different versions of these cars, the TB45 is a little bit less desirable just because it is a little bit more thirsty and it doesn't have quite the power that some of the diesels can make and or the TB48 can make. So it's a little bit down on power compared to some of those offerings, and it's a little bit more thirsty. The caveat though is that it's cheap. You can pick these up in nice shape for $8 grand. You know, if you want some of the more options and the backpacker specials, they might be a little bit more money. People are leaving the country trying to make a buck on the four-wheel drive they convert, but you know, it's a pretty good package. Some of them have been converted to run on LPG, which is it's sort of like a automotive propane of sorts. Those cars, they're a little bit cheaper to run because the LPG is a lot cheaper, but you'll have less power and less range on those, and you have the headache of getting the tanks recertified and the system checked over, and the engines won't really last quite as long. It burns a lot hotter, and it doesn't have any of the lubricative qualities that petrol has. So your top end, your valves, they're just going to wear out a bit sooner because they don't have that lubrication that you get. A lot of them are dual fuel, so you can switch them back and forth to run on petrol and LPG, which is a little bit better. This one, straight petrol. It's never been converted before, which is the way I wanted it. After doing some reading, you know, we don't really have those types of things back home since maybe the 80s when trucks used to run on propane. So I just didn't really want the headache of that, so I just bought a straight petrol one. The diesels are cool. There's a huge following for those here, especially those TD42s, which is a 4.2 liter straight six diesel. Mechanically, the engine's very similar to this one. In its structure and its build, they look pretty much similar. On the outside, you know, the exhaust manifolds are interchangeable, that kind of thing. So I'm sure developmental wise there's a lot of similarities between the two. You know, this engine only revs to 5,000 RPM, so in a lot of ways it's a lot like a diesel. It's a big heavy rotating assembly, and it makes decent torque down low. But those diesels are cool. You know, you can make some smoke with them, really tune them up. Couple of problems with those. Biggest one just being the price. People want upwards of $20,000 for one of those things. There's just a lot of money, and they have a reputation to be known as the kettle, meaning like tea kettle. They like to pop, they like to overheat. towing anything, any kind of load on the engine, when you tune them up, they just like to overheat. And you know, you can really upgrade your radiators, get heavy duty fans, make sure you have all the you know, cooling modifications that people have developed over the years, but you still have that thing worrying in the back of your mind, where this thing doesn't make much power, doesn't make much heat, doesn't make much problems either. It just runs and drives like a simple commercial industrial engine that it is. So that's really a plus to me. The ZD30 diesels had a couple of iterations as well. They're a 3-liter inline-4 turbo diesel. The earlier ones, they were known as the Grenade. You know, just go on the forums, you can read all about them. Everyone's got their piece of information to put out there, but really these TB45s can be had for a decent price, you know, whether it be the 5-speed manual or the 4-speed RE4 automatic. And they have all the great things that the rest of the Patrols have: solid axles, coil springs, really nice looking exterior. The paint typically holds up pretty well, especially in the lighter colors like this, you know, for the age. Just a lot of things to think about if you're going to be in the market for one of these things, one of these Patrols. But don't discredit the TB45 just because it's a bit slow and a bit thirsty, you know. I get about 18 liters per 100 kilometers in this thing, maybe a little bit more if I'm towing the jet ski up hills. So it's not necessarily efficient, but for what I'm used to, it's not horrible either. I'm used to driving 3/4 ton Suburbans and K2500 pickups back home with V8s. This gets about the same mileage as those. Doesn't have quite the power that those have either, but it's a really cool vehicle compared to those things. So a frequent camping spot that we use. Let's take some time to have another look around it with a little bit of scenery. So we got our bull bar on there, scrub bars, rock slider, rails, and side steps. Looking inside, frame's in really nice shape. It's got a little bit of a factory undercoating on it. Radius arms, sway bar links. It's a very simple setup in the front, very similar to the 80 series Land Cruiser. No major fluid leaks, a little bit of oil sweating around that pan gasket. It's got an upper and lower oil pan. Really, for the age and the mileage, it's in pretty good shape. Barn doors are always my preferred design. I prefer them over the clamshells or the liftbacks. My Suburbans had them back home and they're just super nice for camping. Got your spare tire on there. So having a look around the back, we've got our dual tank fillers, sub and main. So they got separate fill stations, which is nice. If we look underneath, there's our big sub tank there, with their hoses going down. So it's a nice steel tank, nice and big and heavy and solid. Doesn't really need any skid plates because it itself is pretty solid. Big H260 rear end, aftermarket track bars, 2-inch lift, and airbags in the coils. It's got a gutted catalytic converter and an aftermarket rear muffler, so it sounds a little bit more gnarly than factory, but nothing crazy. Runs quiet. It's got a diesel hood with the scoop in it. Definitely get some heat under the hood. Going into the rear seat, I'm 5'8", so I'm not the tallest guy in the world. But the legroom's great, especially for the time period this vehicle comes from and the capability it has. It's a really comfortable interior. Lots of handles to hang on to when you're going crazy. Seats fold up nicely, and it was perfect for the setup I have back here. So you still have the 5 seats, but the seats that I have are from a Series 4 GU Patrol. Just got these kind of black sheep wool covers on them, which are nice. Aftermarket console up here, or I should say custom console made of wood. Got some power plugins up there, and we've integrated our CB radio. So it all works pretty well. The nicer Patrols would have had rear climate control, which that is the only thing I wish this had. When we were on our road trips there in the back, it gets pretty hot unless you have the AC on full. What this should help with that, just keep the temperature in a smaller area.